Don't you guys love watching a trailer, sitting back, letting out a sigh of relief and saying, yeah, this is made for me? Nothing that makes you raise your eyebrow, nothing that makes you take a step back and think that there's something wrong with this. No, just a solid mix of gameplay and story that leaves you, for once, optimistic about the future. That is exceedingly rare today. More and more games we see come out have you scratching your head trying to figure out who these games are even being made for. But lately, it's become less rare with games that have been coming out of the East. Not long ago, I had made a video and I talked about how games like Black Myth Wukong and Marvel Rivals had essentially opened the floodgates, that we were going to see a torrent of live service and AAA games coming from the East that were going to reach Western audiences because people are genuinely looking for something different. They're looking for a different perspective on things. I just didn't think that it would happen as fast as it has. Today's video is actually about Blood Message, as well as an Eastern torrent of games that we're seeing. This video is actually sponsored by Blood Message. They gave me the full creative control to explain what the game is and basically talk about whatever the heck I want to. But this game feels bioengineered to be exactly what a lot of people have been looking for. Imagine making something that people actually want to play. What a thought. So today, we're going to be talking about Blood Message. We're going to be talking about the torrent of Eastern games that we've seen over the last little bit, more of them that are coming on the way, and how leaving all these players behind has left a gap for somebody else to stake their claim. I love being right. Now, I have covered Black Myth Wukong extensively on this channel. It's arguably the biggest breakout hit in modern gaming history, coming from a brand new studio that made their very first game, winning multiple Game of the Year awards, and most notably selling over 20 million copies in under a month. Based on available data, I didn't know this until just now, that's a feat that has only ever been achieved by Grand Theft Auto, Pokemon, and Zelda. Take a minute to process that. A first-time developer enters into the market and instantly joins a record reserved for the most iconic franchises in the entire medium. It's hard to even wrap your head around, but what gave Black Myth Wukong such an overwhelming advantage, what pushed it that far, was the ability to activate both Western and Eastern audiences at the exact same time. We are completely used to seeing staggering sales figures in the West, but most of those games don't travel. They rarely resonate in Eastern markets, and historically, the inverse is also true. Many Eastern games are designed for local appeal and never catch fire globally, but that has started to change. Over the past few years, those markets have started to converge, and games like Genshin Impact, Black Myth Wukong, and Marvel Rivals have led that charge. It was only a matter of time before the next game dropped. And I think that game is going to be Blood Message. I sat back watching this trailer just thinking to myself, oh, here it comes. We're about to see a wellspring of fresh games and new ideas flood the market. With how accessible Unreal Engine 5 has made AAA level production and the rising success of Eastern studios, we are watching the cork pop in real time. The untapped creative potential of one of the most populous countries on Earth is finally bursting forth, bringing with it thousands of years of history, culture, and mythology that global audiences haven't even scratched yet. Now, Blood Message is a fully single-player, narrative-driven, linear action-adventure game. You buy it once, you play it, no strings attached. It's the debut title from 24 Entertainment, a new internal team at NetEase Thunderfire, and they're not treating this like it's some type of warm-up. Every single part of this project screams like it is being positioned as a top-tier PC and console release built to compete with some of the best games in the world. It's being built in Unreal Engine 5 with all the fidelity that implies, cinematic lighting, real-time weathering, expressive character animations, and environments that look like they've been ripped straight out of the concept art itself. They're benchmarking themselves against The Last of Us Part 1 in terms of tone and detail. The story is set in 848 AD during the final years of the Tang Dynasty, a real historical period that saw one of the last great uprisings against Tibetan control. You play as a nameless messenger caught in the aftermath of a great conflict, tasked with delivering a critical message that could change the fate of your homeland. But this isn't some war epic about generals or emperors, it's a personal story. You're escorting your son over 900 miles of brutal terrain, deserts, dead cities, occupied territory, and contested war zones, all while being hunted down by enemy forces. You're not the chosen one here. There's no prophecy, no superhuman protagonist. It's just you, your kid, and the impossible odds that are stacked against you. It's a game about persistence, about survival, about a man trying to hold his family together as the world falls apart around them, and it's rooted in a part of Chinese history that for most people outside of that region never have explored in games before. And that's the kind of thing that really sells me on games like this, because Blood Message isn't trying to strip down its identity to appeal to a global market. It leans into its culture. The Tang Dynasty is one of the most iconic periods in Chinese history, and this game uses it not just as an aesthetic, but as its backbone. The customs, the landscapes, the political backdrop, even the martial traditions, it's all woven into a world and into the world's design, the combat, and how the story unfolds. It feels purposeful, grounded, like somebody actually finally sat down and asked, what is a story that hasn't been told, and what do people want? It's about loyalty, family, legacy, and a country that's on the edge. I was flipping through some of the YouTube comments just to see what people's thoughts on the game were, and all I saw was optimism and excitement. One guy said it looked like Uncharted, Assassin's Creed, and God of War all together. I'm so in. Dude, so am I. Guys, this is exactly what I wanted to see out of the success of Black Myth Wukong. I wanted to see that game challenge other studios to take a step forward, tell stories, and share experiences that we have yet to know yet. I mean, outside of what the developers had said themselves, I know absolutely nothing about these historical events. The Dunhuang Uprising, the Guyi Army, these aren't stories that I grew up with, but that's what makes them worth telling. I can't be the only one that feels this way. And if I am, it's probably my age. But for years now, we have had the same handful of cultural backdrops recycled to death. Norse mythology, Greek gods, World War II, high fantasy, cyberpunk cities, zombie plagues, and every single time it's just another skin on the same set of bones. That's why Expedition 33 felt so refreshing, because it was so different, so culturally different. Meanwhile, here comes a game rooted in the collapse of the Tang Dynasty, and it's being delivered through a story about a nameless father and son. No Western point of view character, no smoothing out the cultural edges. You either get it or you don't. You're interested or you're not, and that's what makes something like this so powerful. From the outside, obviously, we haven't played the game yet, so we have no idea what it's really going to be like, but Blood Message doesn't just feel like it's a new story. It feels like a challenge to the entire ecosystem, a reminder that the world is a lot bigger than a handful of ideas Western studios have been stuck on for decades, because it's not just that we've seen the same ideas over and over again, it's that we've seen them repackaged, repitched, and resold so many times that they've completely lost meaning. The world ends again, the gods fall again, the hero broods again, and somehow, some way, we're supposed to pretend that a new fresh coat of paint is enough to carry a 30-hour campaign. Barely anybody talks about great stories anymore because we've heard them all. What really excites me about a lot of these Eastern games, as well as Blood Message in particular, is that they're not just tapping into a different setting, it's pulling from a completely different value system: honor, lineage, regional identity, the tension between self and state. These aren't just universal themes, they are global ones. Anybody can get behind this stuff, and they're being filtered through a cultural lens that we almost never see in AAA games. That's what makes them fresh, that's what makes them new, that's what makes them different than everything else we've been playing, and that's what Black Myth Wukong cracked open. That's what Blood Message is capitalizing on, and if this game lands the way that I think that it might, it's going to give a lot of studios a wake-up call. I just have to say, this has to be one of the easiest sponsors that I have ever done. These guys aren't even trying to sell anything yet. All they want is for people to be conscious of the game's existence and to keep an eye out for it. That's about it. My eyes are already all over this thing. I was not surprised in the least to see how much their trailers had popped off and how excited people were just at the premise, and also that another Eastern studio is stepping up to push out another big game. I think there's a genuine level of excitement from audiences right now for these Eastern games, and I think it's actually coming down to cultural authenticity. When I played Black Myth Wukong, one of the things that made me step back was just how I could feel this tangible level of respect for their culture and history. You could see it in the architecture, you could see it in the art, you could see it in the cutscenes, you could see it in the writing, you could see it in the characters, you could see it all over the place. You could see it in the accuracy of those games. You just do not see that in a lot of other places. Call it millennial writing or whatever else you would like to, but one of the things that I am so exhausted by right now is the need for self-loathing and self-critiquing. Every single game has to be layered with irony rather than respect. You see a lot of these games that are being adopted rather than portrayed. That's not what these games are. That's what makes them special. These games aren't trying to justify them to some made up, some imaginary global audience that's out there. They're confident in what they are, and that confidence resonates with other people. That kind of clarity, paired with how this game is apparently supposed to play, is going to make it it's going to make it dangerous, is what it's going to do. And I think that's exactly why this game is going to most likely find success. Again, we still have to wait to see exactly what it looks like, but I don't think this game is just going to make noise. I think it's going to fill a gap that this industry has left open for years. Now, there are a couple things that really stood out to me after watching the trailer and listening to what the devs were actually trying to deliver. The first is the story, not just the surface level premise, but the actual core of it. A narrative built around real virtues, a setting rooted in duty, country, and family. What grabbed me is that you're traveling through the game as father and son. That is not something that we see very often, and when we do, it is rarely the focus. Real family dynamics have largely been phased out of most modern games, and I think the value of that bond, the emotional weight that it can bring, has been lost. Only two games come to mind immediately. One is God of War and the other is The Last of Us, but they approach that idea in two very different ways. God of War is one of the very few games that actually commits to exploring that relationship. It asks, how do a parent and child learn how to trust each other? How do they change each other? How does that bond evolve under pressure? The game isn't just about surviving together, it's about learning from each other. Meanwhile, The Last of Us set up that bond beautifully, only to gut it in a sequel. It used that relationship as a springboard for a revenge arc, stripping it of its nuance and recontextualizing everything through loss, which, sure, that's a choice, but it left behind what made the first game so powerful, that shared vulnerability between two people that needed each other, that intimacy, that tension, that growth. It was all just tossed aside. And while I have my issues with both games, I will always be grateful for one thing: they showed the world from a father's perspective. And in doing that, they helped me better understand my own, what it means to show up, what it means to carry that weight, what it means to be the person a kid looks to. We almost never see that perspective shared, and in today's world, I find that incredibly valuable. And that's what makes Blood Message really stand out to me, because it's not just using that father-son relationship as a plot device. It is the plot. It's the heart of the story. And I think that matters. I love my family. And while everybody comes from a different background, I think there are stories worth telling that hit even harder when they're grounded in that kind of bond. Not romantic, not self-centered, not about saving the world, just about what it means to protect the person who depends on you and how much of yourself you're willing to give up to do so. Games used to be like that, but somewhere along the way, the industry just got so afraid of sincerity. Family became cringe, and the writing became so self-important. Emotional storytelling got replaced by a detached tone and safe tropes. Blood Message feels like a course correction, one that is long overdue. Something else that's really interesting about Blood Message, and it's something that I actually think might even give it a chance to surpass Black Myth Wukong in reach, is how it plays, or rather the kind of experience that they're aiming to deliver. Because when you break down what the trailer actually looks like, or what the gameplay of the trailer actually looks like, it's pulling from some of the most beloved modern action games that we have ever seen. We're talking about the cinematic storytelling of The Last of Us, the weighty third-person action of God of War, and the stealth-driven, deliberate gameplay of Assassin's Creed. But here's the thing, and this is what makes it really interesting. Each one of those franchises has an underserved audience, or one that they've actively driven away. I mean, it's been over 3 years since Ragnarok dropped, and outside of some rumors and leaks, there's really no clear sign of another God of War game anytime soon. And Sony, like most of the industry, has quietly shifted their focus away from single-player action games. Instead, they've been chasing live service experiments, most of which have either been delayed, canceled, or have failed on launch. And in that shift, they have left a huge group of players behind, because there really aren't a lot of games like God of War anymore. Linear action games have become something of a dying breed. And it's not like people stopped wanting these games, it's that these studios stopped making them and they started chasing different audiences. That gap widens even more with The Last of Us and Naughty Dog. They split their fan base and walked away from the dynamic that made the original work. They're likely not working on another Uncharted game, and given the direction of their past titles, and Intergalactic, which is currently in development right now, it is blatantly obvious that these guys have walked away from serving the audiences that they had before. And then there's Assassin's Creed, which might be the most blatant example of a franchise abandoning its identity. What used to be a stealth-driven, character-focused historical fiction is now a bloated action RPG, stripping away all of the things that made it unique. The storytelling got broader, the mechanics got shallower, the historical detail just became background noise in an endless map of markers and gear scores. Ubisoft spent years chasing different audiences entirely, ones that were never loyal to the franchise to begin with. And now the original fans are still there. They're still waiting, still hoping for something else to come up and pick up the pieces. I mean, we can look at major publishers and we all see the exact same pattern. Everyone pivoted towards longer games, open world games, broader audiences, or some sort of live service component. That kind of game that Blood Message is trying to be, a single player, narrative driven, third person action game rooted in the bonds of family and loyalty, has been quietly pushed aside. But the audience didn't simply disappear, they've just been waiting. Blood Message isn't just borrowing from these other titles, it's doing its own thing, but it's also stepping into a space that they left behind. There is a massive group of players that are out there looking for grounded, character-driven action games. Games that don't waste your time, don't talk down to you, and don't bury their identity under layers of irony and fluff. Blood Message isn't trying to reinvent the genre. They're just doing what everybody else stopped doing. I have another big video that I'm actually working on in the background, something that I've been meditating on, cooking for a little bit, and this video actually helped bring a few of those things to light to me. And part of it is where the path of the player and the studio started to split. But we've also, at the exact same time, seen a lot of these newer studios and newer franchises drive straight down the middle of that split and directly back into the audience's path. And Blood Message looks like it's going to be one of those games. That makes me really excited for it. There's a lot of really cool things that they're working with here, and I honestly can't wait to see more of it. While we don't know a lot about the game right now, we've only seen what they've shown and what they've talked about with the media. They're going to keep me dialed in on some of the things that are going to happen with the game in the future, and I just want to be involved with it because I think it looks badass. This is the exact kind of game that I like promoting. There's a lot of the themes that I really like, the cultural significance of these kind of things. I always feel like these kind of games have the opportunity or have the potential to be able to break down some cultural boundaries that have been up for quite a long time. And I think that these games can shape the industry, steer them back in the right direction, and also deliver us things that we just have not seen a lot of over the last few years, like a buy-to-play game. Why is that even a term? How cooked are we that that's even a term in the first place? Anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, make sure you guys check out the link in the description below. I'm actually going to link the website for Blood Message so you guys can get updates on it if you want to find out when the game's coming out or when the next trailer drops or whatever that might be. I want to thank Blood Message for sponsoring today's video. Appreciate it very much. Can't wait to see what they do with the game. And that's all I have for today. So hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, like the channel, subscribe to the channel, share the video, comment down below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe. Peace.
Family, 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 family.